So, as you saw earlier in the videos, we pressed out these factory bushings and installed these polyurethane ones and these heavy duty sleeves. We decided to go with a whole new control arm because our ball joint was also toast. So this should overall give us tons of response, give us a nice stiff fill, and hopefully that will all translate into me being able to feel the car, what it's doing, maybe be able to correct a little bit before I inevitably cream this thing off into a ditch. So, all right, so this is a pretty straightforward install. And I think a lot of this would hinge on how well you install these bushings, because if you don't get them in correctly, it'll probably be a real pain. So take your time and try and get it right the first time, because it'll probably save you a ton of headaches. Oh, that's nice. Not too tight, not too loose. Very good. So I don't always use standard sockets, but when I do, it's typically to press out bushings because they're just the right size. And contact. Oh, I felt something there. Oh, I'm gonna run it home while I can. All right, so here are the two sets of GKtech bushings that we're going to be installing in replacement of the factory bushings, and as well as those the energy suspension kit bushings. These guys are fantastic. As you can see, they're spherical and they allow for a fair amount of articulation on both the shock and body mount. So we have some conical mounting pieces, and of course there's our spherical bearing. Now normally these probably aren't completely necessary, but when it comes to drifting, especially with their angle kit, this allows for our lower control arm to actually pivot and still not bind up. So these cars, even from the factory, pivot a small amount, but when you add the angle kits, they actually pivot a fair amount, surprising amount at least. So these guys get pressed in a little differently than our polyurethane bushings. These guys, I don't believe they're going to require a huge amount of lubricant. We're going to press them right in, and since they actually are kind of captured, it doesn't really matter if they move left or right a little bit. It shouldn't, well, at least I think this guy we probably don't want to move at all, so we're not going to use any lubricant on this guy. Once it's set in place, we'll leave it, and hopefully that won't be too much drama. So let's go take it over to the table. We're going to want to make sure we start with the tapered side. That way it will actually self-center when we start pressing it in. The other way around, you might have good luck doing that, but I wouldn't suggest it. So tapered side up, bearing in. We don't really need to worry about what's below this at this point because we're not going to press it past it. So we'll just start with one here. I think that's let's try that. Whoa, I think it moved. Yeah, it's just right. Perfect. Pretty beat up. I'm going to attempt to start with this bolt and then a nut on the other side, and we could probably use the two of them to compress this bushing into place, because this is a little bit larger. This is the monster under here. Look at that. They had to replace the bolt, and they only had one that was too long, so they threw 2 giant nuts on the side of it. That's actually a lot better than what I was expecting to see. So. It's just destroyed. Yeah, it's just stripped. Okay, that. All right, it looks like we might be able to actually get that bolt out still. Cool, it just kind of hangs there. All right. Really, this rubber bushing's in decent shape. It's just super soft. Borderline foam. Okay, I'm going to try and position this so this slit is towards the back of the subframe. We'll see what will happen here. There's a through hole. And what typically happens with subframe bolts that are through hole design is the other end is exposed to the elements and corrode and get a bunch of grime and dirt on them. So when you try to loosen them, it drags all that junk through the threaded portion of the subframe. So here we are. Feels like we're at the end now. All right, and there we are. Seems like most of these can be done with just a series of nuts and some lag bolts. I'm actually just really happy we don't have to take apart the steering completely on this thing. Sure makes it. All right, so let me go ahead and get the other stuff squared away over here. All right, and we'll use this guy to replace some hardware. This guy, we could probably use like a thread saver to fix it, but just not really too worried about it. We'll get some replacement ones since we already drilled one out, and see if we can get the right size bolt for here rather than reuse those 2 nuts that we pulled off earlier. So I think we'll call it a day for today. It was pretty productive, probably our most productive yet. So see you guys tomorrow.